Good morning. My name is Tamara Shoemaker, and I want to talk to you today a little bit about betrayal. And I'm going to tell you a story about betrayal, rejection, basically. So, when I was very young, my older brother, he was 3 years older than I was, and he found a book of sleight of hand magician tricks for kids. And so he decided to try a few of them. They were some of the simplest ones that you could find. They used a lot of the homemade materials like paper and balloons and powder, flour, different things like that. So as he did these things, he was really proud of his efforts and his successes. And so I, my little sister Lee Aw, was very proud of him as well. Like, he's my brother. At one point in this process, he and my parents somehow thought it would be a really good idea to put on a magic show for the neighborhood. So we had a little gang of kids that used the street for bicycling most evenings or most afternoons. And so during the summer, we were always out there. So one afternoon, my brother went ahead and he issued his invitations to all his friends who came out to bicycle. And he and my parents set up a table in the backyard of our house. And my parents helped him to organize the spectators as they would come in and get ready to watch his show. So for whatever reason, stage fright or nerves or whatever, once my brother began the show, none of his tricks worked. So I watched from the corner of the house as he tried 2 or 3 tricks, but each one of them ended in failure. My dad came over to help him, but by that time, the neighborhood kids had all lost their interest. And one boy picked up a water balloon from the table where my brother kept it for his magic trick, and he said, "Hey, here's a magic trick. I'm going to make this balloon break." And he tossed it against a nearby tree, where, of course, it broke. My brother didn't say anything. The kids all left the yard. They all went back to their interests and what they were doing. No one stayed to watch the trick that my dad and my brother were going to try again. And I ducked around the corner of the house and cried and cried and cried, because it seemed horrible to me that all the work and the effort and the excitement that my brother had put into the show ended in derision and disappointment and ridicule. My brother had worked really hard to make that show nice, and the audience hadn't showed any appreciation for it. So somewhere there was a break in that relationship between my brother and his friends. Trust had been trampled on. The resulting fallout was painful, particularly for the little sister, who is a bit of an empath, admittedly. And I had inserted myself into the misery my brother had felt, the humiliation, the rejection, taking all of that on me, thinking of that in application to me. So today, I read this same story in Exodus 32. It's not a story featuring sleight of hand tricks or kid magician tricks, but it's rather a story of a golden calf that Aaron the high priest constructs for the Israelite people after Moses has been up on Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights. It's what it says in Exodus 24:18. So in Exodus 32:1, the people come to Aaron and they say something that illustrates completely the reversal of their mindset from Exodus 20, when they receive the 10 commandments that the Lord gives them. And they say, "Come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses, who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him." Contrast these words to Exodus 20, verse 2, where it says, "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery." Who brought Israel out of Egypt? God did. And the Israelites know it. That's the thing. But as soon as they decide to change directions, they transition the blame from God to Moses. Moses brought us out of Egypt. He disappeared. Now he's gone. So now we're responsibility free and we can worship whomever we choose. It's a lot easier to blame other people than it is to blame God, right? There's less chance of it coming back to bite us later. The Israelites focused their vitriol and their anger on their deserted leader, Moses. And they conveniently ignore the fact that God still sees them. The God who sees them, his name is El Roi, the God who sees them in Hebrew, still sees them. Because God's not on their timetable. They intentionally switch their focus from him to material things. And it takes them less than 40 days to come to that point. Out of sight, out of mind. Thank goodness we don't do that today, right? Whew, dodge that bullet. We, the people of God, are so completely safe from making the same mistake of refusing to wait on the Lord until he answers, that we never turn our backs on that empty Mount Sinai, right? So the Israelites grab their sins with both hands and they drag a priest of God into their plans. The thing that blows my mind about Aaron is that I don't see him digging in his heels. He's not trying to steer the ship in a different direction. Instead, he boards that vessel and he stands at the captain's wheel, and he sails with the people as they go right into their own destruction. Why? He's supposed to be the main one responsible for the Israelites' religious education, right? So to speak. As soon as the people come to him and they demand a gold calf to worship, he gives it to him. He capitulates. He caves beneath the pressure of too many voices pulling his attention away from God. Thank goodness that doesn't happen today, right? Weehaw! Our pastors and teachers and leaders are pressure-free, smooth as silk, sliding out from beneath the weight of all the voices asking all the fun questions, right? Would a good God allow racial injustice, global pandemics, terrorist attacks, childhood cancer? Thank goodness our pastors and spiritual leaders rise above it, and they point us to God rather than caving into the socio-political agendas that tend to sit on the borders of our spiritual conversations and push buttons, right? So the thing is, none of this is a surprise to God. While the people are turning their focus from God to this statue made out of gold and looks something like a cow and declaring that it, and not God, is somehow responsible for saving them from generational slavery, God has been busy giving Moses instructions for the tabernacle, where he's been planning a spectacular, holy meeting place between himself and his people. Can you feel the abandonment? Can you feel the anger and the betrayal that he must have felt? You try so hard to make things nice, and the people trample it and drag it through the mud and trash all the forethought and care put into your idea. This is no simple sleight of hand show with tricks that don't work because of a mistake in the performance, though, right? This is the real and the awesome creator of the world who wants a relationship with his people more than anything. And they reject him. They betray him. Moses and God are both furious. Some of the fallout: Moses throws the calf into the fire, grinds it into powder, sprinkles the ashes over the water, forces the people to drink it, and it makes them sick. He rallies the Levites to him, and he gives them instructions to go through the whole camp and kill people still clinging stubbornly to the idea of idolatry. And 3,000 people die that day. God sends a plague on the people, and more people die. All of this seems like just desserts. But here's something interesting. Despite the betrayal and the rejection and the ensuing anger, Moses approaches the Lord and asks him for mercy for the people, for grace for the people. He advocates for the people, asking the Lord not to obliterate them from the face of the earth, as both of them are tempted to do, right, in their righteous anger. He stands in the gap. But now please forgive their sin, Moses says, but if not, then blot me out of the book you have written. Make me a scapegoat. Let me take their punishment. Obliterate me instead of them. You know what this looks like? I'll give you a hint. He wore a crown of thorns. On the same day, he took the sins of the people on his own shoulders and told the Lord, make me the scapegoat. Let me take their punishment. I'll die in their place. God told Moses that the people who sinned would have to pay their own price, because while Moses was God's faithful servant, his blood was not a perfect or atoning sacrifice to cover the sins of mankind. Jesus, however, fills that role to perfection and once and for all pays the price for our sins. I hope that fact never grows old for you, because you and I could just as easily have been one of those in the crowd around Aaron demanding desolation of God's good plan. We could have been one of the ones in the crowd jeering at the amateur magician, right? Just because we aren't one of the original Israelites who were wandering in the desert all those years ago doesn't mean that we don't turn our backs on the beautiful meeting place God is preparing for us, trampling on his plans, leaving his ideas hanging in tatters beneath our snubs. This hurts. The whole message hurts. As an empath, I'm heartbroken all over again by this rejection in Exodus 32. Because it doesn't just happen in Exodus 32. That rejection is smattered through all the pages of the Word, throughout history, through current events now, news stories, media web pages that track real-time progress all over the globe. It's nothing new, right? The story of rejection is as old as Genesis 3:6, where it says, "And Eve took some of the fruit and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it." And it's as new as right now, today. God gave us a mediator. His name is Jesus Christ, and he died in our place and makes a way for us to approach his throne, which we can absolutely never do if he doesn't advocate for us. The thing is, we can't reject him. God's not going to force us into that meeting place. He's not going to force a relationship like some heavenly stalker intent on continual unwanted attention. He calls us, but you and I, we have to answer. I know too many people who say, a good God wouldn't send me to hell, or that person to hell. There's no such thing as hell. A good God wouldn't do that. The thing is, hell is real, but it wasn't created for people. Matthew 25:41 says, "Then he will say to those on his left, 'Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels.'" Who's that fire prepared for? Not you, not me. It's prepared for the devil and his angels, but it's going to be the final unresting place for the ones who reject him. The thing is, he leaves his invitation out there. He comes 99.9% of the way, and it's up to us to touch him. One of my favorite things about Michelangelo's famous Sistine Chapel painting is where God and Adam, they stretch their hands across the wide expanse of the ceiling to where they almost touch. They're almost there. And if you study the painting, God's fingers are fully extended. He's reaching. And Adam's are relaxed, as though if he put in an effort, those fingers would touch and the gap would close. But it's up to him to do that. It's his choice. It's your choice. It's my choice. I'm so thankful we have that choice, but let's not waste it. Hope you have a wonderful day.